Hey guys, this is Matthew, and this is beginning Illustrator course, digital media, and just to kind of get your toes wet, I wanted to do this exercise with you where you're just creating a simple document, and with that simple document, you're going to lay out some schedule info, which I think could be handy here at the beginning of the semester where you're trying to figure out where you need to be and what time your classes are held at, and so forth. And so we're just going to be creating a visual diagram. And while we're doing that, we're introducing you to the workspace area, some of the tools on the left-hand side, and how to create a new document and so forth. So this is one that is more or less kind of complete. I'm sure a lot more could be added, but we're actually going to be starting new with a new document and starting from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command N for new. And this dialog box is going to pop up, and it's going to give you all these options may look a little bit daunting, but it's a lot simpler than you might expect. So up here on the top left-hand side of the dialog box, you'll see there are plenty of sort of presets that you could use. And they're really handy. I don't use these often. More often than not, I find myself over here just kind of creating things by, just custom artboards, with sizes, because usually I know what I need to do. But if you are going to be working on, for example, like a cell phone layout, or maybe you're doing something web related and you know the dimensions that you're going to be working with. If you're doing something illustrative, you're probably going to click print. And of course, everything is in points down here as far as print, film, video, art, illustration, etc., etc. But we're not going to have to worry about that so much today. The real truth is I know that I just want to make a simple landscape that's 11 by 8.5 by inches, landscape view rather. I only need one artboard. If I wanted to, I could change the amount of artboards that appear, but I only need one 8.5 by 11 sheet. So I'm going to stick with that. I am going to give it a title. I'm going to call it Schedule -2, since I already did make one, so that'll distinguish that file. If you scroll down a little bit, you have some options, like I think staying in CMYK is a good idea, especially if you're going to be printing this document on a printer, because remember, RGB stands for red, green, blue. And some devices render color that way. So for example, any device that you're holding in your hand, it's probably like an iPhone or an Android device. It's rendering color with RGB, okay, that color space. But if you want to print something to an Epson printer, for example, the Epson printer is going to interpret color in the CMYK color space. RGB, of course, stands for red, green, blue. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and believe it or not, K stands for black, okay? And if we are going to, we have to think about quality as well. And so 300 PPI or DPI is considered print quality. 150 PPI or DPI, maybe you're sending a draft to a client, or you just need to bump the size of the PDF down, So this isn't print quality, but it's certainly a good quality that would be acceptable for a client to review. Screen is 72 PPI or DPI, and that's standardized across the board. So for example, any images that you see on a desktop's computer screen, they're going to be 72 PPI or DPI, okay? And so that's just a brief explanation of the quality. We're going to keep it at 300 PPI or DPI for now. And we don't need to worry about any of these other extraneous details. So it's pretty cut and dry, really simple. So now if I just click create, boom, I have a new artboard to work with. The first thing I want to do, and what I just did, by the way, you can zoom in and out by holding, what I'm doing right there is with my thumb, my right thumb, I'm hitting the command key on a Mac, and then I'm kind of hitting plus or minus to zoom in and out. And then oftentimes what you'll end up doing is you'll zoom in real far. I know it just kind of looks like plain white space to everyone right now. But after you've kind of done your more surgical work on a document, what you want to do is you just want to hit Command 0 and you pop back out and you have a full view of whatever it is you're working on or whatever document is selected, or artboard rather. And so that's really handy. I mean, I zoom in quite a bit, and then after I'm done completing whatever task or taking a look at whatever detail is associated with the vector graphics, I'll hit Command 0. Okay. The other thing that you want to do is you want to save your document right away. And that's also a short key. So Command S for save will prompt you to be able to save your document as an AI file. And if you look up here, of course, it populates the name of the file with what we put in the initial dialog box. So it says schedule-2 currently. And then the surtext or the end text for an Illustrator file is .ai, okay? And so any .ai file can be read by Adobe Illustrator, all right? And you can see this is the previous one that I was working on, but we're going to start a new one so that I can kind of walk you through these pretty essential basic steps that will give you some experience and tools so that you can move forward, okay? So I'm going to save it there because, I mean, you never know what is going to happen with Illustrator. You want a physical file in a physical USB location or in the documents folder on your computer. You want a particular location where you're holding things, okay? That easy. Here's another circumstance where a lot of these options are sort of extraneous, and for the time being, I would just trust that Illustrator is doing you right, okay? And this looks good to me. I'm going to hit OK. So now a document is saved, and first thing I'm going to do, or I want to show you, is the grid, because I think that's one of the powerful things that this exercise shows you, is how valuable the grid can be in Illustrator. There is a shortcut on the keyboard, and so if you just hit that parentheses with Command, you can toggle the grid on and off, okay? And so you got to hold Command and hit parentheses, and that will go on and off like so. You can also do it up here. So if you go to View, and right now the grid is being shown, so it's giving me the option to hide the grid, so I can click on it here. And of course I can bring it back with the hotkey. One thing to keep in mind is here it's, you know, it's asking to hide the grid again, but if you look over on your right hand side, you can see the Command short key for a lot of these things, and that can be useful down the road, okay? I think as a designer, just being able to use the software more efficiently and quickly just becomes second nature. But it takes some time to really familiarize yourself with the software. And of course, when you're first beginning, you're sort of you're more apt to kind of do things the hard way sometimes. And sometimes when you train yourself to do things the hard way, you continue to do it that way. And that's why I'm bringing up this idea of shortcuts. Of course, here's that shortcut for zoom in and out too. You see it on the right-hand side, there's the Command plus or the Command minus. That's a perfect example. Or fit artboard in window, Command 0. I was just talking to you about that one. All of these things are really, really handy as you gain experience with Adobe Illustrator. So let's get back to the nitty-gritty. So we've got our grid selected, but I mean, with this idea of creating some sort of a schedule, I'm going to need to use the text tool, but I'm also going to need to create some lines, because what I want to do is I want to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday kind of set up in these columns that I can then populate with some shapes that would represent, you know, the schedule info. So, but before I do that, I need to find the line segment tool, and that's right over here. The line segment tool is basically like a pen tool. You know, if you like right now, let's see, we've just deselected any color up here with the fill, and that's what that red line indicates. That means no color or null color, okay? And right now, those black lines that I would be creating with the line segment tool, that is indicated with the stroke color on the, so there's the fill and then the stroke. Pretty much every object that you make on the screen is going to have a fill and a stroke. And even when an object does not have or appears to not have a fill, that's only because it's currently reading, or at that time reading, is a zero property. So it's not blue, it's not red, it's not green, it's not any color, it's just clear, it's transparent. Same with a stroke. Every object almost always has a stroke for the most part, okay? So I can just drag, I just selected the line segment tool, which also has a shortcut that is indicated here. And then I can select the black arrow selection tool and simply click away, and now it's deselected. And notice how I can kind of grab this line that I just created and I can move it around. I can also drag to select, and then I can make the stroke larger. Okay, and that's probably a bit too much for the purpose of this project. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command Z, and then I'm going to hit Command Z again, and essentially all that is undo. So you can undo things in Illustrator really beautifully. So if you make a mistake, it's no big deal. So moving things around with the black arrow selection tool. What I need to do, though, is I actually need to grab the anchor point. This object has two anchor points, one over here and one over there. But I actually can't, I mean, I can only move it around, but I can't modify this object all that well. Or with the anchor points, that's a better way to put it. I can't grab anchor points with the black arrow tool. And so what I need to do is I need to switch up to the direct selection, white selection tool. So boop. Notice how things change a little bit when I do that. And you can grab the entire object by an anchor point and you can move it. But that's not really what I want to do right now. What I want to do is I want to double click into that anchor point so I can just kind of nudge it around or move it around. Right now, I also want you to notice that the anchor point is moving very fluidly. And notice how there's a grid. We currently have the grid view on. And so, but since we do not have snap to grid engaged, this anchor point is moving fluidly. Alternatively, if I come up here and if I go to view, and then if I engage snap to grid, by the way, this is one of my favorite things about Illustrator. I'm a very grid-based designer and module-based designer. So having snap to grid on is really just satisfying for me. But it also indicates how precise Adobe Illustrator is. You can really get surgical. You can come in here and there's that anchor point right there that we're talking about, the white arrow selection tool. If I double click it, now that we have, notice how this anchor is not currently resting on a grid intersection. But if I try to move it again, it's only going to want to move on those grid intersections because I have snap to grid on. When is that a good thing to use? Well, if you're working with the grid closely, then turn on snap to grid. And you can move that anchor point up here, move this other anchor point up there. And then all of a sudden you start to kind of like have this format, for putting some names of the days of the week up here, or, so I just made a line. I know it seems quite simple, but there are a few things associated with that process in Adobe Illustrator. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put the days of the week in here. So let's do that next. So here's the type tool, this big T on the left-hand side. And of course, it has a shortcut T. So you can click on T. And right now I have snap to grid on. So look at that. Look at the way that beautiful type box is respecting the grid when I'm dragging and laying it out. And this right here is lorem ipsum, and lorem ipsum, you know, if you may be new to graphic design, but lorem ipsum is essentially placeholder text. And so if you're working on a publication document and you have not received the text from the copy editor yet, like you're working on the design and the layout, and you know, that's kind of what happens in a marketing office. You're working on the design and layout, but you have not received the actual text yet, which can be a very sort of complicated thing because text, you know, has space associated with it. And, you know, and we need to have all the information on the page, but sometimes if you have too much information, it throws off whatever design that you were anticipating to complete for the project. And so having good dialogue with a copy editor is really important because it essentially saves you time and work and energy when you're in an office. That being said, that's why you use lorem ipsum, because you can ask the copy editor, okay, how many characters do you think this text is going to be? And you can start to estimate the space that it's going to take, okay? So, but we know what we're doing here. We're just doing days of the week. So I'm going to type Monday, and I'm going to do it in all caps. And with the newer version of Illustrator, it's kind of nice. You can see it's happening up here on the top of the screen where you can select a different font, but you can also do it right down here when you're creating the text. That's kind of convenient. Myriad's not bad, but you know, my go-to is always Helvetica or Arial. Not all machines are going to have Helvetica installed on them, but most, if not all machines, will have Arial. Helvetica and Arial are close to being identical. Not quite, but very close, okay? It's just a very safe font or typeface to use for a lot of different circumstances. So the other thing I wanted to show you before I make that change is that notice how this text box is now an object that can be moved, okay? And I can even like grab these handles and expand the text box, all right? That's not necessary right now, but it's certainly valuable for you all moving forward. I can actually make this text box a little bit more narrow, and it's not going to make Monday go away. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. But I want to change the font here from Myriad to Helvetica. And notice if I just come over here, actually it is doing it. You used to have to go in and actually select the text to make the change. But you might find a circumstance where you have to do that. So you can double click into this object and you can essentially get more detailed with the type work that you're doing. So just kind of keep in mind when you're on a surface level with this object, you can kind of move it around, but sometimes you want to double click in so that you can change the text, for example. Okay, whoops, dyslexia. The other thing I want to do is I want to center this text, so I need to select it. I don't know if you guys, I did that really quickly. I double clicked in, I selected the text, and now I'm going to center it up here with just some formatting, simple formatting or aligning rather. So now I've got Tuesday set up, but really what I want to do, and also now I've set up this text object, and notice how I can just, I'm not moving it with my cursor. I can actually select it and then I can toggle it around with my cursor. I think that's pretty nifty. That's really cool. And so I'm just trying to get it into place because I know where I want it to be. You know how I know is because the grid is telling me. Look at, the grid has these beautiful increments and I can sort of follow its lead. So boom, boom. Instead of doing that over and over again, to me, it's easier just to copy and paste. So I'm just going to copy, Command C, Command V, and then get these guys into place so I can start working and doing that. It's all fun, but let's see, and we have to balance things out a little bit. Like, for example, I think, and watch what I'm going to do here. I want to select that line, but this object is now sort of in very close proximity with that line, and I want to select the line. So I'm going to drag and select, and I'm going to hold shift with my left pinky and click Tuesday, and now just the line is selected. So I deselected Tuesday, but I kept the line. Why did I do that? Because look, I need to extend this line a little bit according to my modular system. So now I'm going to click on the white arrow tool because I need to grab that anchor and drag it over a bit because I want things to be balanced. That's just my thing. So now I'm going to select everything. And again, with my cursor and with snap to grid on, look at that. Really cool. My grid might be looking a certain way with particular increments, and you can actually go to Illustrator, Preferences, then you can go to Guides and Grid. And right now, there's a primary grid line every 1 inch, and and I have 8 subdivisions, okay? And so why do I want 2, 4, 6, or 8? Well, I mean, a ruler is 1.12, which is 1/8, or 1.25, which is 1/4, or 1.5, which is half, right? And so on and so on. So you want these familiar sort of increments as you're working. If you put a 9 or an 11 in here, it's just going to be really strange and wonky. So you're going to want 2, 4, 6, or 8. Nothing really more detailed than that. There have been occasions where I wanted there to be 1/16 of an inch, but that's getting a little bit OCD and surgical, and we're not going to be doing that today. But if you need to customize your guides and grid with these subdivisions, you can do that there. So even like, for example, and I'm going to do it now, I would not put 6 in there. I would honestly only put 2, 4, or 8. That's just, it makes sense. See that? So now I have one of these smaller lines every 1/4 inch. Okay. So I'm going to come back here, go to Preferences, Guides and Grid. I'm going to change this back to 8. Okay. Because that makes sense. So yeah, we're setting things up. Now I want to save, Command S, just so I don't lose any work. And then I'm going to hit Command 0 so I can see my artboard all together as one. It's a good start. Yeah, really simple, right? Okay, well, let's see. Let's start creating, let's duplicate this black line horizontally. We're just going to duplicate this line because we're trying to create a timeline like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., that sort of thing. I think you guys get the gist of it. So I got to come over here, drag and select and deselect Tuesday again by holding Shift. Now I've got the line that's the right length selected or highlighted. Hit Command C, then hit Command V, and you've got that same line duplicated on the artboard, because why start over? There's just no reason to do that. I do want this line to be distinguished a little bit. I wonder, I mean, it's already very, very thin, and I think if I go much more thinner, it'll be very hard to see. I did do that. I took it down to 0078 apparently, but I mean, that's just a visual diagramming move I just made because I want this line to be distinguished from this line up here. So copy, Command C, Command V. I'm just going to set all these guys up. Now, if I want to work smarter, not harder, I'll select both of these at once. Command C, Command V. And remember, I can just select them, and then I can move with my cursor. But I'm perfectly fine just kind of grabbing them with my black arrow selection tool and moving them around that way. I made a mistake here. Look, there's only 3 blocks. So I need to, there we go. That's corrected now. Command C, Command V. Remember, work smarter, not harder. Again, getting closer. And I'm going to go again, although I might have to delete a few that are kind of falling off the artboard, right? Okay, we'll keep that one. Okay, so it's good, but I just wanted to show you something else too. Maybe I want these to be sort of a lighter gray, just because. So I can come up here and I can go to the stroke, that's indicating black currently, and I can go to the drop down and I can just make it, instead of a dark black, a dark K, CMYK, I can sort of lighten it up and make it more of a charcoal, a dark charcoal. And so that's just easier on the eyes, in my opinion. Hit Command S. So now I'm going to select another one of these guys, hit Command C, Command V, and there it is right there. And I want to rotate this object, and I can do it manually, like so. So I don't know if you guys saw, I can just kind of come over here, and on the corner of any object, you can rotate with the black arrow tool, but I want it to be precise. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the object, and what I just undid two moves. I don't know if I hit Command Z twice to sort of just put things back the way they were. Now select that new line, come up here to Object, Transform, and Rotate. And you can actually tell Illustrator, okay, rotate that object 90 degrees. And so now it's just going to be a perfect line to put on the left-hand side. I could have just created that line. And in fact, I mean, you can, when you're creating a line, you can hold Shift and it'll just straighten it out for you. Okay. And I was just toggling Shift on and off there, by the way. But I'm just trying to show you all a few tricks of the trade here with this exercise. Okay. So I'm going to put this on the far left-hand side. By the way, these things are snapping into place. Why? Because I have snap to grid engaged. Very, very important. Okay. So yeah, okay. Looking good. Now I need to put 9, 10, 11, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to create a little box. I'm going to start with 9. I don't think I should start with 8. I think that might be a little too early for a class schedule. I think usually classes in my mind start at 9. And yeah, also I'm going to turn the grid back on so you guys can see. Look at, this text box is snapping beautifully to the grid. And from my perspective, that's good. Okay, because I like the grid. And I'm just going to put these numbers right here. And it can be the same number when you start doing it. So copy, paste, right? We know that drill. We've been doing it. Copy, paste. And sometimes that's what this is a matter of, is just kind of, you can make change later. It's better to kind of develop this way of working that is efficient, if you ask me. And that comes with time, okay, folks? And I just made a mistake. I don't know what just happened there. I don't know why that's acting funny. I'm just going to get rid of that one and start over, because it was still on my clipboard, so I could just copy a new one or paste a new one, rather. I guess you could consider what we're doing here as an infographic as well. And that's something that's very valuable for graphic design, and also like a marketing office, because if you complete, or if you're working on an annual report for an organization, they're trying to show numbers to folks. So you can create beautiful diagrams with Adobe Illustrator. Now, this line ended up being a little too long, and that's why it's hanging off the bottom. So we have to come over here, switch it up to the white arrow tool, grab that anchor point, and we're just going to move it there. So now 1, 2 anchor points. Perfect. Hit Command 0 so we can see everything. It's kind of nice just to do that every once in a while. It's really satisfying to hit Command 0 and we can see the progress of our work. Hit Command S. Okay, so 9. Now we gotta remember, to change text, you got to sort of double click into the text box. So I'm going to double click, select, and then just type 10. Double click. Oops, it's maybe better if I zoom in a little bit. It'll be easier on me and you, I believe. Double click, 11. Double click, 12. I know this is tedious, but this is just life with Illustrator. Double click, 13. Double click, 14. Double click, 15. Double click, 16. Click, 17. Whoops, you guys, I made a mistake because this is clock time, not just numbers, right? So I need to back up 9, 10, 11, 12. 1. Excuse me. That was silly of me. 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of you might have some classes going a little later tonight or this semester. 9, 10. A little late, but it might happen. Who knows? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now we have to do another duplication. Let's duplicate that line segment and put it where it needs to be. Boom. Boom. And actually, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. You can select both of them. Copy, paste. Sometimes it's a little tricky grabbing the meat of these long segments. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're almost there. Although I kind of want to, I'm tempted to cap this on the end as well. So we've created a real simple sort of system to plug in some diagrammatic shapes that represent our schedule. Let's hit Command S to save, hit Command 0 to see everything all together. I think we still need to change the days up here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Right. I think this is a good exercise to do at the beginning of the semester because students are trying to figure out where they need to be and how they're going to make everything work. So to me, it's really it's almost sort of time management, project management. It helps with that sort of thing. Okay. I think we're ready to kind of plug in just some basic class information, right? So I'm just kind of looking at just sort of a fake schedule in front of me with some fake numbers. And let's see, I believe maybe a drawing course needs to be offered Monday, Wednesday, 1 to 4:15. And I'm just gonna, let me back up for a second. I just engaged the rectangle tool, which is simple. It just makes a simple rectangle, okay? And all to make a shape, I just drag, okay? And so you can also change the color of that shape. Remember, I said that most objects in Adobe Illustrator have a fill and a stroke. So if I select this object, it currently has a black fill and it has no stroke indicated by that red line. But I can change the color of that square only by selecting it. If I don't have it selected, I can't change the color. If I select it, it'll show me what color is currently loaded as the fill. So in order to change the color of an object, it has to be selected or highlighted with the black arrow tool. Then you can make the change. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that's a rule of thumb in Illustrator, if you ask me. What I like to say is that Adobe Illustrator is just very object-based. You have to select things in order to make changes. So select, okay, what did I say? 1 to 415. Okay, 1, 415, and it just so happens to work, you know, with the grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then back to the full hour. Okay, and so that's why I believe that our plan will work. So 1 to 415. Okay, let's copy that because that's going to happen on Monday and Wednesday. So I'm going to put that over here. Okay. There's another class that goes from 6 to 9:15 Monday, Wednesday. Just copy it, you know, right? 6 to 9:15. 6 to 9:15. Boom. Okay, we took care of that one. Another class, Tuesday, Thursday, 12:30 to 4:20. Let's try that. So 12:30 to 4:20 is a little bit odd, so I'm just going to say 4:30. Okay. Put that over here. All right. Interesting. So we're starting to block things out as far as our schedule, our semester schedule. I've got some more classes too that are a slightly different disciplines. So I'm going to start plugging those in as well. So let's see. I'm going to choose a different color for that. Copy. And I'm just going to put it right next door. 2 to 4. Monday and Wednesday. Oops, I didn't change the color, but that's a really simple change. Now I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to select another object by holding Shift. And because they're both selected, all I have to do is just kind of change the fill. That was easy. Okay. I've got another class. Looks to me like in the evening from 6 to 8. Actually 5 to 6. Monday, Wednesday. So yeah, I mean, it's a busy schedule, right? But we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. But that's why this is helpful, because you might even want to put like a lunch break in here. I don't know, maybe who knows what obligate. Maybe you got a work schedule too, and you're trying to balance out work and school. This is a good way to do that. Yeah, I think that's enough for now, but you can make sort of a visual diagram by changing the colors a little bit, dependent on what the subject is, what the course is. I'll leave those details up to you, but remember, there are plenty of options up here for you to explore that diagram. There's one other thing I want to mention, and that's layers, because right now everything is on one layer in this document. And so you can come over here, actually, if you have Essentials Classic, the workspace selected, you're most likely going to see a layers palette down here on the lower right. Okay, if you do not see that, just come up here to Window and then go to Layers to turn it on. But there's only one layer right now, which we can actually turn on and off with the eyeball. We can also lock it down. If you lock down a layer, you cannot do anything on it, which is why you have that funny pencil with the, you know, thou shalt not pass, you know, signal there. If a little Lord of the Rings nerdiness for you guys. So I want to make a new layer, but I want to unlock this one. Then I'm going to hit the plus sign down here. And remember, you can drag layers around, you know, maybe you want this layer up above that one. So you can drag things around. One thing I do know is I want this information to sort of lie behind these lines. So I'm going to hold Shift and select all of these blocks that I made. And I'm going to put them on a different layer. And I don't know if you guys, I'm going to hit undo so you can see what I did. When I select all of these guys, oops, I missed one anyway. There's a little icon that it's actually telling you, indicates selected art. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can drop it down really easily and conveniently, okay? And so now I can actually move that layer above or vice versa. So it's pretty handy, okay? And I should have done this earlier on after I had sort of finalized the structure of the schedule, because all I had to do was lock it down, okay? And then there's no way I can disturb that information, but I can still disturb and add information here. But the real truth is I kind of like this idea where these lines are kind of showing through. And so that's why I want to drag this layer down. And I can name layers too. So that's info, let's call it that. And let's call this one just days. All right, good enough, not bad. Hit Command S and save. And if you want to print this document or if you want to export it, you can't print, I mean, I guess you can print an Adobe Illustrator file, but it's, in my opinion, it's not typical. But you can go to File, Export, Export As, and you can select, there are many options here. You could do a JPEG, a PNG. For the time being, I might suggest that that we export this as a PNG today. And a PNG is just a nice quality vector image file, okay? Well, the other thing I want to encourage you to do is get into the habit of clicking use artboards, because otherwise it will not include the artboard space and it will only print out an image going to the border of the artwork information. And so notice how the 9 doesn't go all the way to the border, the Monday doesn't go all the way to the border, but we still want this PNG to be 8.5 by 11, real nice and square. So I'm going to click use artboards, then hit export. Then you have those options. Remember, we were talking about 72 PPI, 150 PPI, 300 DPI PPI. Let's go with 300 because it's no skin off our nose. There's also this handy option here where you can export with a transparent background. We don't need to do that today, but there are many, many circumstances where you do need to export something with a transparent background. Trust me, and that's really the power of PNG. PNGs, in my opinion, are much more powerful than JPEGs. It's my personal preference and professional preference that I like PNGs. Hit OK. It's going to think a little bit. It's not going to take long for that document. Then I can go back to my Finder window. I believe, I'm trying to remember exactly where. There it is, schedule. Okay. So schedule.ai. Notice how everything is in the same project folder so I can find things. Here's the original AI file that I was working on, which looks a little bit differently, not much. Here's the one that we're working on currently, and that's the exported file that Illustrator just exported. So I'm going to click on it just to review it so we can see how it looks. Looks pretty good to me. Real nice, clean graphics, clean Illustrator graphics. I know, folks, this may seem really simple and rudimentary, but it's just a simple introduction to Illustrator to get you started. Okay, thanks.